So Warrior as a class has had its ups and its downs during 2024, but headed into the Hunted, we not only have a new Warrior on the horizon, but also a lot of the support that the class really, really needs. So today, to help me understand and unpack all this, we're bringing Josh Lau, hero to Warrior players everywhere, on for a chat. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Dice Commando and a very special Go Again, a fabulous cast. Today we are joined by hero to Warrior players everywhere, the one, the only, Josh Lau. Welcome, sir.
Thanks, Andrew, for having me. It's first time being on your show, on your podcast, on your channel, so this should be a good time.
Yeah. Well, you're the Dorinthea champion, so I've been following you for a long time. So you were the one I had to call when I didn't get the new card. So, but first, before we dive into it, can you let folks know your background, your team affiliations, and what you're up to these days?
Sure. I'm Josh Lau. I've been playing Flesh and Blood for several years now. You may know me from the Card Guys YouTube channel or any of the live streams that I do every Tuesday. I mainly focus on Warrior content. I have registered a Warrior for every single Tier 2, Tier 3, and 4 event that I have ever been at, which is getting well into the double digits now. So I've played Warrior when it's been great. I've been playing Warrior when it's been not so great. But, you know, I'm Josh Lau and I love Warrior. That's my introduction.
Yeah, fair enough. So I guess that's a good one. Like, why Warrior? Why have you stuck with it? Being, like you mentioned, good times and bad times, and right now is one of the latter. So why Warrior, and why have you stuck with it?
Well, I just really like the identity of Warrior. And this is a story that I've told several times. I'll try to be short. But people often think that the core identity of Warrior is, hey, they got weapons, they got great armor and all that. They hate helmets, stuff like that. But the real common thread between the four Warriors is that they put their opponents into difficult positions. Now, this is not kind of like how Assassin does it, but Warrior's kind of like, hey, if you want to keep your hand, you can keep your hand, but I will get some benefits. So Dorinthea is, if you block, I get reprise. You don't block, I get double counters, or I hit you 3 times with the hatchets or the sabers or whatever. Boltyn, if you don't block, okay, Bolt of Courage will draw me a card. You'll take a big chunk of damage from, a V turn. My Luminos will hit, gave me life, gave me soul. If you do block, well, then I get an extra pump if you block with an attack action. Similar with Kassai, if you block, well, you're kind of feeding into her game plan of playing very mid-rangey. If you don't block, well, you're going to pay for it several turns later with Blood on Her Hands or Raise an Army. And Olympia, say, classic with Wager, if you don't block, the man gets gold. He's going to turn it into extra close a couple turns later. If you do block, well, again, that turns on reprise, and that builds into his whole mid-range thing. So all the Warriors kind of have that common thread that they put their opponents into tough spots. There's a very, very back and forth between your opponent. I think most people generally enjoy playing against Warrior. Like, it's not a class that gets a lot of complaints because they're an interactive class. They generally don't just steal games out of nowhere. So that's really why I like Warriors, because you get a good game generally, and you have interesting decisions.
Yeah, fair enough. I think it's a great answer. That's one of the things I enjoy most is, like, are you going to throw the card out or not? And are you going to trigger that reprise? And to that point, I am hoping you can help me. And that's why I've asked you to be here today is when we saw Provoke spoiled, many Warriors, yourself included, right, as a recent video you had, pretty hot on the card. So this card in of itself, it is a blue, which is awesome. So it's a blue block 3, as you'd expect, but it costs 1. If you're attacking with a weapon, this chain link, the defending hero reveals a card from their hand. If it's an action card, add it to this chain link as a defending card. Otherwise, they discard it. So that latter part is pretty nice, because if they decide they don't want to show you something, they still lose a card, which is pretty awesome.
Right.
But I'm struggling seeing the net benefit on this card being 1. So can you talk me through why you're so hot on this card?
This card is actually a pretty complicated card to understand unless we've really played with it. But I tried to. My card analysis really goes to, okay, what situations have I been in before, and how would I be able to plug this into those situations? So this is a card that you're not going to play unless you're flooded with blues and you have tempo generally. But so that's one situation. The other situation is I have a hand that is very good, but I need my opponent to do something very particular. I need them to block so I can go grab Glint with Siggy Steelblade, or I can draw a card with Glint. Or so I think there's like 6 or 7 reprise cards in the game. Most of them are quite good, but they're not really by themselves above rate. Mm-hmm. The above rate comes from the hero ability, right? The hero ability says if you hit them, you can convert a resource into, assuming you have Gogan, you can convert a resource into damage at least 3, perhaps more, depending if you have a counter, depending if you got Out for Blood reprise, depending if if you get to attack the next turn, right? So a lot of the situations that Dorinthea gets into, when you have tempo, this card kind of just holds the glue together. Like, I think the surface level analysis is, it gives you reprise when you wouldn't get reprise. That's level 1. But the deeper point is that, like, this card existing already has to make people play a different way. This is a card that I think would be better against people that know the card pool, and they have to be like, okay, I haven't seen it provoke yet. He kept 5 cards. Can I really keep my 5-card hand? Like, if I don't block, is he just going to pull a card anyways? Now, the issue is that it says action card, right? So that does make it inconsistent. Like, this is not a card that is going to be universally powerful. Like, you don't automatically get reprised with this, right? If they reveal a D-react, if they reveal any non-action card, basically, you don't actually get reprised. They just discard it. So that you have to weigh that. You have to weigh that there. Now, I actually think that the card is actually stronger in the dual wield deck than in the Dawnblade deck. I don't actually think you get into that many scenarios where you have tempo, you're flooded with blues, and you need reprise. That's like 3 things that have to come together for this card to be really good in Dawnblade. But in the Hatchet build, in the Saber build, I think this card is quite good because it forces the game to slow down, which is important for that style of deck, the overall strategy of that deck. So this card, I think, tactically is used in Dawnblade Dorinthea, but like strategically is used in like the Hatchets version of, or the dual wield version of Warrior. Now, I actually think my evaluation, now that it's been a couple of weeks, has actually gone down a bit, but I still think the floor is quite good, and the card just existing makes people have to play around it. So, I don't know if you have any follow-up questions. That was a little bit of a ramble.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, I actually like how you described it was, there's a tier 2, tier 1 and a tier 2, right? I mean, the tier 1 and everybody saw it was like, oh, I can force reprise. And I was like, well, hold on. Like, if I'm pulling, let's say,
it's the issue.
Well, yeah, but like, let's say I do force it and I pull a 3 block out of their hand. Well, that just nullifies, in effect, my Iron Siren response, for example, right? Because now like in Dawnblade Dorinthea, for example, in order to get over top of that, to be able to swing again, I just consumed my resource to do that. Because usually, right, as you're well aware, Warrior 101, pump, swing, 1 on the back, right? So now I just consumed my 1 floating to do that. And then I also just threw, let's say, 3 more block in front of it that I now need to get over. So with, like you said, there's 6 or 7 reprise cards, like some of which are completely worthless against this card. Because what are you going to do? Provoke it and then route it back? Like, what's the point, right? So there's, like Singing Steelblade, you mentioned, I think is accurate. Glint, of course. But outside of that, like none of the pump reacts, I think, are valid here. So that's kind of where my head went originally, of I'm not quite seeing the path. Your point on the dual swing is interesting. You're using this on first swing?
I think it really depends on how they're defending, or if they're not if they're defending or not. So if they aren't defending, it's not really worth it to pull it, because you just spent a card for them to. They weren't blocking initially, and generally the reprise doesn't matter for these dual wield decks. So generally, I would use it to cause them to like if they block the first attack, and then I provoke a second attack. Now they're blocking 6 on 2. Then that might make more sense. But generally, I would use it on the second attack, because by the second attack, you have some sense of, did they want to block or did they want to keep their hand? And that's really the key with this card, I think, is that people have a plan for their hand. And if you can mess it up even a little bit, a lot of decks kind of fall apart if you take one card from them. Like the difference between a 4 and a 5 card hand could be 10 damage, depending on, like, a 5 card Mordred Tide turn is a ton of damage. A 5 card Via the Vanguard turn is a ton of damage, right? A 4 card hand, less so, right? So I think just being able to get people off of 5 card hands once in a while is good. And like I said, I think just this card existing also makes people have to play it a little bit of a different way. I'm not sure if this is a 3 of, now that I think about it a little bit more, because there's no situation where you want 2 of these. I mean, sure, you could pitch one, I guess, but the value of it being an attack reaction is not actually that high. There's not that much overpower in the format. Yeah, I'm not. I have to play with this card to really understand it more, but I kind of think the floor on it is like just high enough that, like, okay, goodbye precision press. I don't really need you anymore. Or at least I could cut some precision presses.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. And your point on the dual swing build is actually really well received, because with Shift the Tide of Battle came out in heavy hitters, and we just got Unsheathed, and your dual swing resource curve went way down in the last year. That's fair to say, right?
Yeah, and you often have a Vigor token from Goblet or Grains of Blood Spill or Tunic. So this extra one, I don't see it as a big deal, and it really slows the game down, which is exactly what you want to be doing. Resetting those dynamos, getting the game to go along.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, we will stay posted as you. I think this card sniff it out.
Is one of those cards where you really have to try it out. My gut says, like, if these things light up, it's good. And it's better than a lot of the other blues that exist. So,
Well, I mean, at the base level, you look at
also, it. Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead.
There could be some extra synergy with the daggers. We'll see.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Oh, I mean, that's fair. Making them block something they don't want to on a 1 that's a good point. Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of the hunted and daggers coming, so we have Jagged Edge. Jagged Edge was one of the first ones we saw, and it was like, hey, warrior players, here's your treat. Don't worry, we didn't forget about you, right? So
they revealed this in Osaka, and I was like,
I need it right now.
I need that now.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's definitely been implied to be the help that we need, right? So target attack, it's +3 and unpreventable. So just slice through those words. So
target weapon attack.
Target weapon attack.
If this said target attack, it would be nuts.
Go Olympia, right? Just come in for a casual unpreventable 10. Yeah, not too bad. So first off, what are your thoughts on this card?
So Jagged Edge is a very, very important role player, and it is worded very particularly. It says target weapon attack. So not sword, not axe, not two-handed axe, not two-handed sword, not one-handed axe, one-handed sword, not pole arm or whatever. So this works on everything. It works on daggers, it works on swords, it works on our axes. And you think about, again, primarily for warrior, there's dual wield decks and there's the Dawnblade decks, and this fits into both of them. Now, Boltyn is his own thing. He got Warcry Bolana, which should be sufficient enough. If he really needs to add it in, he can add in Jagged Edge, but I really don't like adding red non-light cards to my Boltyn deck. But I think Boltyn is already fine into Enigmas, so he should be fine. But Jagged Edge is a very, very important card because it helps the Dorinthea decks deal with the ward. So I've actually started my initial way of dealing with Enigma back at Worlds was to go with route and overpower. 3 route, 3 overpower. And when they play their mirror guy, I have a 5-card hand and I just get that thing out of there immediately. With Jagged Edge, now you can have a different approach. You could combine Jagged Edge with another +3 pump, and that will work in almost every situation unless they have unmovable. Because +6 is more than Sink Below. And it's more than Sink Below plus... well, even if they make a shield, it doesn't even work, right? So this card is very important. And this plus Chorus of Iron Song probably tips the matchup in Dorinthea's favor. The matchup actually, if the Enigma player made a mistake or was not experienced in that matchup, they could easily lose. At the highest level, when 2 players are playing and the Enigma player's very competent and they know exactly what they're doing, I think it's heavily Enigma favored. But all it takes is one mistake on blocks for their whole board to disappear. And the way that I've actually beaten Enigma in this current metagame often involves just running them out of cards. Just taking the game to turn 20. Every single time they resolve a mirror guy, I have a route or overpower and I get rid of it immediately. And I have those, I play out every single Chorus of Iron Song that I have. Sometimes I get a counter to make things awkward. That's how I found to be a decent way to deal with it. But now Jagged Edge fixes that. The dual wield decks traditionally were a little bit underpowered because they couldn't, for Dorinthea, she couldn't trigger her hero ability against Enigma with the dual wield. But now with Jagged Edge, you can place that on the first attack or the second attack. It's really, 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 really tough to deal with. And the second attack already had potential to be huge, right? You could go Red Blade Runner and then hit and run and then swing, and that's coming in for 9. And if you have a Jagged Edge, you're going to get your 3rd hit in, you're going to clear their whole board. It's going to be great. Now, Chorus of Iron Song, unfortunately, said target Dawnblade, so it didn't work with the hatchets. So this is actually a very, very important piece for the Sabers and the hatchet builds. And again, just this card existing makes the Enigma players have to play it a different way. So it's really good card. And it doesn't say reprise or anything like that. So good job. The only thing I wish is that this had some flavor text on it. It's a pretty empty text box. Yeah.
So that's actually, it's funny. I don't know if you watched Sloopdupe's video that came out this week. He used this example.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty empty. Yeah. It's I mean, it could be one of those full art cards, I guess, eventually. So.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've talked to some others about is I've shared my concerns that because this is being touted as the card that will help save the class, my words, not theirs, right? Definitely my words, not theirs, right? But I have concerns that this is a Majestic and not a Rainbow, right? What are your thoughts on that? Is this appropriate as a Majestic, or would this make more sense as a Rainbow?
So if this was a Rainbow, I think that creates a very polarizing matchup. If you really want to hate on Enigma and there's only like 2 other classes that, like, Florian sometimes runs Seeds of Tomorrow, Jarl, I guess. Prism sometimes has Ward, but mainly it's Enigma, right? If this was Rainbow, you could develop a deck that would be really, really, really difficult for Enigma to overcome. And I don't know if LSS really wants this to be that polarizing. Now, the thing is, if this was a blue, I don't actually think it's good. The yellow would be good. The blue, remember that I said like combining them
Mm-hmm.
gives +6. If you play blue Jagged Edge plus a +3 pump, that actually doesn't solve anything because a sync below blows you out completely. You have to get to +5, and yeah, that's very, very, very important. Is being able. That's why I was running Overpower and Route, is because getting the +6 meant they could not solve that problem easily. Yeah, so if they made it rainbow, I don't even think it would be that good, is the issue. But it'll also polarize things. Now, we've seen a trend towards Majestics being ridiculous for this year. You just look at the Majestics from Rosetta, like Felling of the Crown, like 2-card 11.
Yeah.
Plow Under, 2-card 9 with Disruption. So, yeah, I mean, I could see the reason why they didn't want to make this a rainbow. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think if we need more support, they can give the Chorus of Iron Song, Warcry, Bellana to Kassai and Fang and Olympia through some other way, if they really need to.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I do acknowledge this is the red set or another red set, but
that is true.
As you mentioned, I really wish we had a yellow, because I think then it could go into, and to be fair, this was spoiled before Bologna was, but you know, this could have gone into Boltyn very easily, to the point that you made before where you don't like to throw reds in there. So I think this would have been better as a yellow, and I guess that's why I would like it to be a rainbow. But as you mentioned.
Fair. Yeah, I think Illusionists in general have the most polarizing matchups in the game. The decks that are good against them destroy them. The decks that, like Guardian and Warrior, that just struggle all the time to play against them. You know, I think LSS doesn't want to create such. They don't want to push even more variance in that sector.
But then they're dropping Roll the Dice Arachne, so I don't know.
That is true. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Right. Well, looking forward to the Hunted. Are you looking at Fang at all? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, Fang is a really, really, really tough to evaluate at the moment. My gut says that he's going to be somewhere between like Boltyn and Kassai. My thought is that, okay, he's building up fealty tokens and setting up stances, and then finishes the opponent with a flurry of weapons. So kind of like how Boltyn charging up Soul goes for the Lumina combo, or Kassai builds up gold, raise an army or blood on her hands with copper. Dorinthea builds up Dawnblade counters, and then they block 12 and you play Twinning Blade. And whatever Olympia does. I don't know what Olympia's finishing move is. He pitch stacks blue up the ante, and then plays something. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's generally how the playstyle of Fang will be. Now, it's very interesting. The fealty token says you could break it at instant speed, right? So you could turn any attack reaction into a Draconic card, which is very useful. This is actually something that we've seen, kind of a disconnect between the warriors. Like Boltyn and Dorinthea are actually like completely different. They're like, they have the same word at the bottom saying warrior hero, but like they're really different decks. The fealty token allows Fang to take the warrior card pool and say, hey, Warrior's Valor. I don't know if he's going to play Warrior's Valor. You're now a Draconic card. Iron Song response, you're now a Draconic card. And that's really a good design at base. Whether or not jumping through the hoop of getting 3 fealty tokens to make your Courage of Blade hold for daggers, it all depends if the daggers are any good. Now, very likely they are 1 power. So so time will tell. Their ability needs to be quite good. Either like if you played a Draconic card, it gets go again. If you played a Draconic card, it gets +1 or something like that. If this is not defended, it gets go again or something like that. So We'll see. It all eyes are on the Draconic daggers, and it might be the case that Syndra and Fang actually share a weapon pool. We saw a little bit of that with Red Hot and the other specialization. Like Fi and Jeremiah shared a specialization, so it's possible in Volcor or the Drakai or whatever, thematically, that they have a tight bond, so they share weapons. So how they could design a warrior ninja warrior weapon, I don't know, but we'll see. Yeah, we're recording this before spoilers, so it's really tough to say. But
and with our luck, they'll spoil it like 18 minutes before I drop the video. So
yeah, please don't do that. Make us look bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about Fang because to your point, like let's even give them benefit of the doubt and say it is a two power weapon. Yeah, let's say it's a 2-power weapon. The build up you have to, and it's because it's not just the build up, it's the sustaining that you have to do to keep the fealty on, right? Because the fealty goes away not only if you pop it, but also if you fail, basically if you fail to do the thing. Yeah. So
you have to play one card a turn.
Right. And that's got me concerned because the payoff then's maybe 8 off your weapons, right?
Yep. I feel like there will probably be some emergency button equipment that says destroy this, make a fealty token or something like that. Or I'm not exactly sure how they're going to do it, but there's likely going to be some emergency button, I would guess. Or you just have to build your deck with so many 0 cost stuff that even if you have to block with 3 or 4 cards, you could still fulfill that. So the deck building could be a little bit of a tricky thing, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, he does in theory have like Blaze Headlong and the Rupture cards, right? Yeah. So we will see.
Yeah, and Draconic is the red line talent, so there's very likely to be a lot of 0 cost stuff. If we look at the what, I don't know what's the name of it, the numbers in the corner, like the set numbers, it looks like there is going to be quite a few Draconic cards based on the position of like the cards that have been released. You can kind of map out the set. So if there's a lot of Draconic cards, and it seems like since Syndra and Fang in draft are going to share a pretty good card pool, there could be a lot of Draconic support, and that will help keep the fealty tokens around.
Yeah, do keep in mind probably some of those are reprints, right? I would be shocked if Brand of Cinderclaw wasn't reprinted, right? But
yeah, that's true. That is true.
All right, so with that said, looking at Fang, which we know very little info on, I would like to get your take on what do you think the future of the warrior class is, right? You're easily one of the more prolific warrior players in the game right now, right? So from a competitive standpoint, all the way down to kitchen table play, what's the role of the warrior class? How does it not get lost in Guardian? How does that all play out?
Oh, that's actually a kind of tough question. The current role of warrior is, it really depends on the hero, but Dorinthea really is a knowledge check for a lot of players. I think oh man, this is actually really a deep question. I think with their current design philosophy, they're trying to, they want assassin and warrior to be their kind of their own thing, but there has been a little bit of a overlap. Like Provoke is like the first card in 5 years that they printed that like forces interaction. So I think they'll probably start to print more disruption for warrior. I've always said that we don't really need negative disruption as warrior. We need stronger positive disruption, or not disrupt, positive benefit for us, right? So if you look at Dorinthea, like, what is the worst thing that can happen if you don't block her? Okay, she draws 2 cards off supremacy and gets a counter. Maybe she hits you 3 times, like if the stars align, right? So I mean, that's not that bad. Like one of the interesting things about playing Quicksilver Prodigy, have you been playing any Blitz? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Getting a permanent counter on Dawnblade is a giant pain in the ass. So like, I think they could work with that whole design space of like, okay, there needs to be a little bit more benefit for the warrior if they're unblocked. I've often talked about like a bleed mechanic, like if you get hit by a weapon, you get a bleed token or something, and that just gets worse and worse and worse or something like that. Yeah, they have a lot of design space to play with, but I think they probably shouldn't make it too similar to Assassin. So I would really hope that they lean a little bit heavier towards you don't block the warrior gets something. Type of like we have it in Jubil, which is a classic, like you don't block this, all right, against a Runeblade, against a wizard, I basically gained a health. So something like that I think is good.
Yeah. I still think I should be able to make 2 Spellbane tokens at the same time.
When I read that card, I didn't read it correctly. I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna destroy Kano. Once I get 3-4 Aegis tokens, goodbye. I'm never gonna lose you. And then my friend Kaiser was like, Josh, you can only have 1. I'm like, oh, this is useless. But it's still useful. I'm actually using it in my battle hardened Atlanta list. So, Jubil I still think has a place, but they could do a lot more with beneficial on hits for warrior.
Yeah, you had asked if I play Blitz, and I play a ton of Blitz. One of my favorite hero I think of all time was OG Kassai, like Cintauri Sellsword, right? Yeah. And I think she was the perfect warrior because she punished you for not blocking, in that she, to your point, got stronger, right? She could pull off her ultimate. And I think she, to me at least, she remains like the best model of what warrior can be. And I think that fits into what you were mentioning of, getting those, it doesn't have to get me a card or something like that, but it can make me stronger over time. Maybe your bleed counter idea, however that converts as well. But something I'm worried about, and I think this fits into what you mentioned about the assassin stuff, is if warrior starts to get detrimental on hits, like in the truest sense, does that just drive power creep of the class to the point where it probably becomes too good? I mean, there is still assassin out there, so I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I've listened to their design podcasts a lot, and they've mentioned warrior in 2 contexts that they're kind of like very cautious. And the first one was, if, let's say, Dawnblade Dorinthea becomes the best deck in the format, that's extremely format warping. Everybody needs to put 9D reacts in their sideboard. And that was kind of how it was back in Crucible of War. I think you've been playing the game quite a long time. You remember back CRU Monarch, Dory was actually, her and Dash were the queens of CC. And very, very common to be seeing Staunch Response, Unmovable, Rainbow Flick Flax, Take Cover, Reduce to Rune Chant. You would see all that, plus Sink Below Fate Foreseen and all that. And
Springboard.
Springboard Somersault. Oh man, that's an OG there. And so like if Dawnblade Dorinthea becomes like the best deck of the format, then everybody has like 70 deck slots. That's not really good. So they're kind of afraid of that. And they also mentioned that they're very, very afraid of Lumina combo Boltyn. And it's really obvious. When I saw all the Dusk Till Dawn stuff, I'm like, okay, that's for Raiden. Okay, that's for Raiden. Okay, that's the Draft Chaft in a supplemental set. That's Draft Chaft in a supplemental set. Okay, Raiden. I'm like, huh. Okay, I didn't get any tools for my Saber combo deck. Oh, okay, fine. And then they started printing Scowling Fleshbag, Mask of Recurring Nightmares. They started printing all this disruption. Pulse Wave Harpoon was the start of it. I remember that. I was like, I used to bully all the Mechanologists with my Saber combo, and then they got one card, and it made a big difference. Same with Brute, getting like Send Packing, getting Scowly Fleshbag. So they've been printing a lot of cards that are saying, no, you don't get 5-card hands. And they aren't printing support for Lumina combos. And so I think, and we've also seen what they did to Kano, right? So I think they might be pulling back a bit on the combo thing. So yeah, in terms of those things, like that's where the design team is like afraid of Warrior. Mm-hmm. So I think they'll try to tiptoe around those things. How they're going to do that, I don't know. I do like your point about Kassai, the OG Kassai being like a really, really good example of what Warrior could be. Is, all right, you let Spoils of War hit to keep your 5-card hand. You're not going to pay for it immediately, but 2-3 turns down the road, you're going to regret what you just did now.
Right.
So, you know, they have a lot of design space. I'm interested to see where they go. I just hope that LSS gives us a helmet. I'm tired of running Crown of Providence and other things. So yeah, that's fair.
So I was listening to another podcast. So it was Arsenal Pass, right? Ponkosh has joined, and like I'm a huge Ponkosh fan, right? I mean, I always listened before, but huge Ponkosh fan. So they one of his first episodes joined. They were talking about consistency and the power of consistency within the meta. But one thing I took out of that was I was like, well, if you want to look at consistent decks, Warrior's one of the most consistent decks out there. Or I should say the Warrior class can present some of the most consistent decks out there.
Yep.
So it's not just consistency, it's also the amplitude of said consistency, right? Because I can very consistently put out 6 to 8 damage as a Warrior. But that's not good enough anymore. Right.
Exactly. That consistency is, I would say the consistency of Dawnblade Dorinthea is actually lower than it looks, because you need a blue, you need a threat, and you need a pump generally. So like there's been many times when, okay, I have 2 counters, I have full tempo, I draw 4 reds, I'm sad. Like I think the best quote I heard on consistency was from Alan Lau, and he said, if you could play E-Strike and choose draw a card, your deck is consistent and good.
Oh, you meaning everything's going bad for you and you're still doing okay?
No,
is that, or...
no. If you could play E-Strike and the mode is draw a card, your deck is good. Because you have lots of go again, or you don't care what you draw. Like Dromai.
Oh, I get it.
You draw anything is good. Same with Aurora. Anything you draw is good. Briar, almost anything you draw is good. Whereas like Dorinthea, it's like, okay, I hit with Steelblade Supremacy. Oh, I guess blue overpower is good enough. Put it in the arsenal. So there's some consistency there. In terms of matchup spread, I think most Warriors have a little bit more consistent of a matchup spread than most decks. But I don't know, with Illusionist being there, maybe that has changed. But yeah, I do hope that I just think they have a lot of design space to go. So I'm kind of waiting and seeing. Whatever they give us, I'll have fun with it, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough. Well, speaking of waiting and seeing, you and I are recording this before Battle Hardened Atlanta, but this will be coming out after Battle Hardened Atlanta. So do you want to give folks this is like the Wayne's World back in time machine at this point, right? When folks are watching. Yeah. But sure. What are your plans for this weekend?
So my Worlds list that I took to Osaka was a Dawnblade Jubil CYB deck that was able to race, fatigue, and fatigue by deck damage. So let me break each of those down. So it was able to run a clean 60 into matchups that I could not fatigue or I had to race. This is a prime example would be Zen. You cannot fatigue Zen. Don't try that. It doesn't work. So I would basically have to run a clean 60 and race them. Then I would have decks where I had to pure fatigue them. So this is the prime example back then was Dash.io. So I had a clean 60, lots of blocking cards, Sync, Fate. That's all you got. Tons of armor and, you know, a little bit of disruption with Chains of Eminence. And then I also had the fatigue by deck damage. So this was what I used to deal with Runeblades. I think right now Runeblade is actually like ridiculously powerful. Viserai is on another level of power than the other decks in the format, in my opinion. And Jarl and Ira entering the metagame didn't really do anything. Ira is a huge underdog against Viserai, even though I think Ira is actually a good deck. But this fatigue by deck damage idea is, okay, I use CYBs as efficient null rune, and I have a very good blocking deck, and I have the threat of Dawnblade or Jubil against the Runeblades, and I basically outlast them. Viserai's damage output physically is like his physical and magic output is actually 50-50, right? So the issue is that you can't always AB efficiently because there are breakpoints. Sometimes you don't draw blues. So the CYB really helps with that. Now, they did ban the blue one, but I still think you can still do quite well there, especially if you added a couple Sigil Assaults, I think is also very good. So so that whole idea, the CYB, Dawnblade, Jubil, Dorinthea, the attack reaction package that I picked for that deck was Rout, Overpower, Blade Flurry. I did have some Siggy Steel Blades. I didn't have very many punctures, no Out for Bloods, no Stroke of Foresight. And I encountered something very interesting on stream on Tuesday. So this was the 31st. I was talking about the state of Warriors and kind of giving like an overview of like the last year. And then I played one game on stream. And it was a Dorinthea Mirror. And I was like, all right, sure, why not? To close the year, let's play a Dorinthea Mirror. And at first I thought this guy is a stream sniper because he had so many D-reacts. And I was like, tried my best to break through. I was playing an aggressive Dawnblade list. And eventually the game goes all the way to the end. And then I take a look at his deck and I'm like, this deck is weird. It's like, it doesn't have Siggy Steelblade. It doesn't have Twinning Blade. It doesn't have Iron Song response. What is going on? And then I thought about it a little bit more. His idea, I don't even know who this guy is. I if you are somehow watching and you played Josh Loud and Dory Bear on the 31st, please contact me because you're very inspirational. I looked at his deck list. I'm like, okay, this is very interesting how to deal with Runeblades. So I think his idea, because he was running Iron Song Versus. So you pitch a card, you swing your weapon, and then you Stroke of Foresight, Puncture, or Out for Blood. And with the Iron Song Versus active, that's a 2-card 7. And then you just block with the rest of your cards. I think that's what he was trying to do. And so I was like, okay, that's interesting. So I basically, for the list I'm going to play at the Battleground, I combined my Worlds list and some of the ideas from this guy's list. So I took out my Rout and Overpower, and I added in all these one-cost things. I took out the Siggy Steel Blade. I took out the Twinning Blade. I took out most of my Iron Song responses. No Determination, no Glistening Steel Blade, no, none of that. And I played about 10 games in the last 2 days. And I learned a lot about the list. I think it's pretty interesting. Is it good? I don't know. I'm basically going to Atlanta just to have fun. But I do think there might be something there, especially with Jagged Edge. It will slot very nicely into the deck. And then the deck will become pretty good against Enigma, I think. So I don't know. We'll see. I do think this iteration is going to be interesting.
Well, we will. By the time folks are watching this, we will know how it went.
Yeah, I might go 3-3 and just not even get any tickets. Who knows? We'll see. I'll have good fun. I'll get some good fun anyway. So.
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for using your late evening to talk with me. That's always everyone's got to wait till my son goes to bed, so there's not screaming in the background. So I appreciate you staying up late where you're at.
It's all good, all good.
Before we head out, can you let folks know where? I know you already mentioned the card guys and stuff, but if you want to give other shout outs or do some promos,
Sure.
I'd like to turn it over to you.
Yeah. So if you want to follow me on Twitter or Blue Sky, I'm Josh_TCGZ. I don't post that often, but when I do post, I try to, make it interesting or relevant. If you would like to catch some of my streams, those are Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central on the Card Guys YouTube channel. Also, we are going through A to Z series. We're trying to cover every single hero. So the guys have been hard at work on that. We're about halfway done. We will probably finish by March or April, probably. We also have lots of content planned for the Hunted, obviously. We will be going to Memphis as well. So if you're going to be in Memphis, say hi to us. We do have, I'm going to give you an inside scoop. Okay. I'm going to reveal something here. So we have these challenge coins from 2022. These are really, really old school. We didn't make a lot of them, but they basically had, let's see, I got one right here. So if you've seen me on stream, one of the most common questions is, what in the world is this, Josh? This is our challenge coin. So there's Dawnblade there, and it says, thanks for the game, JL, so Josh Lau, and 2022. So we made a batch of these back in 2022. And, if we played a game, you could say, hey, Josh, I want to challenge you. I'm like, okay. And I put a poker chip on the table. You win, you get the poker chip. And, well, I have one left. I lost 24 challenges. So there are 24 orange Josh Lau poker chips in the wild. And each of the card guys has one of them. And it's been 3 years since we've done that. So we were like, you know what? Let's make a new poker series for 2025. And that's going to be debuting basically at the Calling Memphis. So if you play any of the card guys at the Calling Memphis, tell them, hey, I want to challenge you. And you could get one of the new 2025 card guys challenge chip as a reward. So there's that. Yeah.
Awesome. So fun fact, I'm actually trying to get to Calling Memphis because I want to go to Memphis. I've driven through it many times because I used to be based in New Orleans, driven through it many times, never stopped. So I'm trying to make that work, but January, early February is always rough.
Hope to see you. Hope to see you there if you can make it out.
Yeah, should be fun. And actually, that is we'll give a shout out for promo for them. It's actually a double calling, right? There's a calling on Friday and a calling on Saturday, right?
Now that small complaint. I kind of wish they flipped the formats, like getting a CC list on a Friday, the release day. I don't know. You're gonna have to go to a ton of pre-releases, I guess. I don't know. Or have contacts with one of the vendors there and say, hey, I want to buy 4 cases of Hunted. Are you gonna be at Memphis? And then go from there. So
or have a team and split them all up.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going, hey guys, if you open Jagged Edge at your pre-release, you know where that's going, right? So, yeah.
One of your brother and I'd seen him make. This was like 2 months ago. He put a tweet that said the same thing. He's like, "Can we flip this, please?" And I was actually surprised. I thought it was like really good feedback, and I'm surprised they haven't flipped it. So maybe they're going to be selling a whole bunch of. Maybe the person putting it on will be selling a bunch of singles at the event or something.
Yeah, there you go. But and some people will enjoy that fresh TCG format. Some people will enjoy the fresh limited format. So, something for everybody to do there.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, anything else before we get you out of here?
No. I mean, I just love this game a lot. I know you love this game a lot. Both of us have been creating content for years now, and I'm just Thanksgiving is long past, but I'm just thankful and grateful for LSS and the friends that I've made along the way, and I just love playing the game. I love seeing the world. I love, meeting new people. I'm a blessed man.
Awesome. Well said, my friend. So, as you may be familiar, my closing statement, you got to say it with me, my friend.
Sure.
Go Commando.
Go Commando.